is unchanged, that there has not been one word, one letter that's changed. They have to support that somehow. And so far, they have no support whatsoever. All they have is reference to this in the Quran itself. There's internal reference for this. The eternality comes from chapter 85, verse 22 and 23 in the Quran. So there is the claim to eternality. Uh, as far as unchanged, that it's never been manipulated or created or deleted by humans, that's found in chapter 10, verse 15, and also chapter 18, verse 27. These are well known references. You all know them. This should not be new to any of you. And the reason they're unchangeable, because if it's eternal and uncreated, no man can have any any chance of accreting or deleting or corrupting the word of God. That by itself would eradicate its eternality. But the main reason why it cannot be changed is that Allah Himself promises to protect it. And that's in chapter 15, verse 9 of the Quran. So the Quran is very clear that this book is eternal, that it's never been touched by human hand, that nobody can accrete it, no one can delete it, no one can corrupt it, no one can change not even one word and nor one letter. And that's what Muslims are saying today. And this has been the mantra that you've heard over and over and over again. Dr. Yusuf Kali, this is his famous mantra. This is the book that is, we can go trace right back to its origins. That not one word, not one letter has changed. Some would say not even a dot. I really don't want it. Dr. Shabanani himself has said this numerous times. In fact, if you look at his debates with Tony Costa in the 1990s, you look at the debates he had with me in the 1990s and 2000, all the way up until 2014, he has been very clear in every debate that I've had with him on the Quran that the Quran is the only book in the world that can be traced right back to its origin, right back to the original text. The original text being the Quranic text 652 AD. So this is why suddenly these manuscripts are absolutely important because the manuscripts either defend or confront this notion of eternality, confront or defend this notion of unchangeability. Inimitability is the word they love to use, that it has not changed one word, not one letter. So here comes these manuscripts, and you've seen them before. We have the Topkapi, which is the one that is in Istanbul. That one is about 99%. It's the best they've got. It's the most complete, certainly. But it has 2,270 manuscript variants. It is dated to around 750, around the time of the Abbasid Empire, 7th century. Not the time of movement. Neither is the minor manuscript, which is the one in the British Library, the one that we used to take to all the time and show people. It's written at a slanted, what you'll call a mean slanted. It is about a half of the Quran, only it goes up to Surah 43. It is full of manuscript variants as well. The what they call the Metropolitanus manuscript, which is there in France, at Bibliothèque Nationale in Paris. That one is only about 23% of the Quran, and it has 93 variants. And it is also a slanted text that's around dated to around 8th century, early 8th century, about 720, 725. It's one of the earliest ones. Again, not not complete, nor is it from the 7th century, and it has variants. The fourth one would be the Samarkand. Some people would say it's the second one, probably the most popular one after the book copy. The, the Samarkand manuscript is from Tashkent in Uzbekistan. It also only has 43 surahs, much like the Manil one, the one that's in London. And it is made in what we call a monumental text. It is full of grammatical errors. It has all kinds of mistakes. It looks like it's been written by five different authors. It is dated anywhere from the early to mid 8th century again. The monumental style was something that was borrowed from the Christians. They started using those in the 8th century. But Dr. Underwood and Solomon, the two leading Muslim scholars, they don't even use this manuscript. It is an embarrassment because it has so many changes. Even the 43 surahs that it contains, 16 of them don't even exist in the 43, and only one surah is complete. The others are just partial. So it is a real embarrassment. The Husseini manuscript is the fifth manuscript, and that's the one that is in Cairo in Egypt. It is huge. It is monumental when you see the pictures. It just stands. You know, it would be too big to put in your back pocket. So it is known as a monumental text. It is very problematic because, first of all, we don't know how much of the Quran it is. Muslims will have had control of it. They have not done a study to tell us how much of the Quran exists in it. What's fascinating, though, is they have released many pictures of it, and if you see the picture, you will see covering after covering after covering after covering, multiple coverings. There's one page that has 8 coverings on just that one page. What's left over that has not been covered, sometimes they wrote over top, sometimes they left it blank. But what in this one page, there are so many coverings that you can't almost read the text. he finished his doctoral thesis, 800 of these changes, different kinds of changes. Sometimes they covered over top, like they did in the Sanaa Manuscript. Sometimes they wrote in the over top or within the word or above the word. They instilled other words much later on a different script. Other times they erased and they just left it blank. Sometimes they erased and then wrote over top. Sometimes they taped over and then wrote over top of the taping. At other times, they just wrote over top of the word that was there. They didn't even bother to erase it. I mean, it was so rude. And in every case, Dr. Dan Blueberry noticed that in every case, it censored the text and text. It standardized the text so that it would now, it does now, you might say, what you're reading, it does now support the Huff's text that we use today. The Huff's text, as you all know, is the text that was chosen by Muhammad al-Husseini al-Haddad there in 1924 in Cairo and Al-Azhar University as the standard text for all the world. Well, at that time it was just for Cairo, but has now become the standard text as of 1985 by Ibn Saud founding there in Saudi Arabia. That is now the standard. However, as you have well seen, we have heard from me and all others, especially Hatun, the one who was arrested today, because of this very thing that he was noting there today, the holes in the Quran. She has found 37 now. She's up to 37 different Arabic Qurans, none of which are the same, with 93,000 differences. These are consonantal differences, and these are diacritical differences. Okay, so that's where we stand at the moment. But this is the problem. The biggest problem, of course, is the manuscript. The Sanaa manuscript is the last one. That's the sixth one. The Sanaa manuscript was discovered in 1975 by accident when they were looking at a dome of the mosque there in Sanaa, Yemen. They found a trapdoor. When they opened the trapdoor, hundreds of manuscripts fell to the ground. Nothing surprising. That's quite normal. The manuscript starts to deteriorate or get old or decrepit. You don't burn it, you don't throw it away, you put it up in mosques. They're safekeeping. So these were up there for safekeeping or forgotten. And suddenly they fell to the ground. As they were ciphering through it, they came across a few pieces or bits of manuscript they could not read. The reason they couldn't read it is it had no dots, it had no vowels, it had no harakat, it had no jobs. These are the dots that you put above below the line, the five dots. The nut, the ta, the tha, the va, the ya, that follows five dots. And then the dhamma, the kasra, the fatha, the sound, the three vowels that are used in Arabic. Those vowels and those dots were only introduced in the 8th century, were only finalized in the 9th century. So this manuscript obviously was very early. It predates this introduction of the dots and vowels. a huge excitement. Of course, they couldn't read it. They didn't know how to read it, so they had to fly down the German scholars. And the German scholars they flew on were Dr. Gerd Quinn, Dr. von Holbert, Dr. Oleg from Saarland University in Saarbrücken, which is the western part of Germany. Flew them down in 1981 to look at this manuscript. They took pictures of it, put it on microfilm, and the government of Yemen confiscated the microfilm. Did not release them to them until around 1997, I think is the date. I went to visit Dr. Gerd Quinn in Germany soon after that. I he showed me a picture of one just 2 pages of this manuscript. He had reproduced it with his wife, Elizabeth Quinn. So Dr. Gerd Quinn and Dr. Elizabeth Quinn are the two scholars who've done the most work on the Sanaa Manuscript. And as they were looking through the manuscript, they noticed that parts of the manuscript, the ink had a lower layer of ink existed, which was starting to bleed through the upper layer. This is known as a palimpsest. Whenever you have a animal skin, and that's what they would use, usually goat skin or deer skin. Whenever you use deer skin or goat skin, on a for a manuscript, you could be writing a text and then you would realize that there are mistakes or you need to make changes or maybe a new text had come that you need to add or subtract or delete or increase whatever. You would wash off the lower layer, and when you washed it off, it was gone. No ink there. And then you would write over top what you wanted there. And that's the text we see on the upper layer. And that is the upper text has been dated to around 705 AD. Muhammad died in 632. So you can see about 70 years, around 70 years after Muhammad's death, this upper text is written. Where was it written? Most likely up in the north, most likely in Baghdad or in Damascus. I would suggest it was probably written in Damascus because that was the center of the Arab world at that time. That was where the empire was. That was where Muawiyah was in power. That was where Abdul Malik, and Abdul Malik would have been in power in 705. That was his headquarters, so probably this is written in Damascus. Saddam The problem is that after hundreds of years, this lower script that had been washed off starts to bleed through and starts to be seen with the naked eye. As you can see when you look at any of these pictures of Saddam you will see there's a bleeding through. So what the German scholars did, Gerd Quinn and his wife Elizabeth, they took the manuscript, they put it under ultraviolet light, and when you put it under ultraviolet light, you can split the two layers, the upper and the lower. The upper layer they dated to 705. The lower layer they dated to within a few decades of Muhammad's death. So we're talking, or within a So we're talking about 660, 670. That would be the earliest manuscript that we have, or some of the earliest material we have from the 7th century. It's only 63 verses first. This is not a whole Quran. Many Muslims say, oh, see, they found the whole Quran. No, this is just 63 verses of that lower layer. And what is interesting, when they look at the lower layer and they compare it with the upper layer, there were 70 differences, 70 different words, phrases between the two layers, proving that between 660 and 670 and 705, the Quran was being changed, was being rewritten. That's the obvious takeaway from what I just said, right? Right? Well, can you see the problem then for the Muslims? So here comes Dr. Shabirali 2 weeks ago on June the 13th. Dr. Shabirali wants, and this is something he does quite often with his daughter. Dr. Sophia is his daughter, and so she has the Quran Speak, this channel she has on YouTube, and she often brings, in fact, this is what she does, she brings her father on board and asks him a question that is given to her by Muslims who are curious, or Muslims who are having problems, and this is a big problem for Muslims. So they have brought it to Dr. Sophia. Asked Dr. Sophia, what is he going to do with this manuscript? What's he going to do with the Sanaa Manuscript? Two different layers. Seemingly two different Qurans. Seemingly a difference within a few decades between the lower and the upper text. You can't have that if the Quran is eternal. You can't have that if no man can touch it or create it or delete it. You can't have that if Allah Himself says He's going to protect it. You can't have two different layers of a Quran saying two different things with 70 different letters, words, phrases within just 63 verses. That does not at all qualify, and of course, it throws out any notion the Quran is eternal or that it is written long before Muhammad was ever existed. In fact, that it was written has always existed eternally alongside God. Unproven. You can't have that if you have layers of one man, just one man. So she's asking this question. You can go see it. You're going to see, we're going to put the URL. It's only 17 minutes long. The interview between Dr. Sophia and Dr. Shabirali. Two doctors, a paradox. Get this? A paradox. Fathers and daughters. And so she begins by saying, what are we going to do with this manuscript? So he responds, well, there's nothing really to worry about here. This is nothing really a problem. Now, I'm going to just go through 6 different areas. Rather than read everything he said, you can watch it yourself. It'll take me 17 minutes to do that. I don't want to do that. I just want to go through and pick out 6 salient points that he did use, because each one of those points throws the Quran under the bus. I don't think Dr. Ali realized how much damage he was bringing to the Quran by making these six points. Let's go through them one at a time. So the first thing he said, and he admitted right from the get-go, yes, you're right, the lower layer is substantially different or significant variances. There are significant variances between the upper layer and the lower layer. So he's admitting that this is not the same Quran. Admission number one. Put that under your hat. Number one admission. Now admitting that there is a difference between the lower and upper layer, which means that the Quran has changed between 670 and 705. Obviously, he has to support that by saying, however, there is no difference between any theology or any belief or any practice. He just says that, but he doesn't support that. He doesn't even show that. We're going to show you. I have yet to unpack the Sanaa Manuscript. We're going to do that. I want to bring Buddy on board. Buddy's doing his doctoral thesis on the Sanaa Manuscript. Wait till you find what he now knows about the Sanaa Manuscript. We're going to shoot that to pieces. There is all kinds of differences between the upper and lower layer. But it's not important if it weren't the fact that this is supposed to be an eternal book, unfettered by human hands, untouched by even one person, and that no word and no letter has changed. Well, here, Dr. Shepardani is admitting there are changes. He now admitted it. It's there in the open 2 weeks ago, June 13th. Mark it in your calendar. So that's number one admission. Number two, he goes on and says that this Sanaa Manuscript, well, then how do you get two different, how do you get a different Quran from the upper? How does this come about? He asked. If there's only one Quran, and if Zayd ibn Thabit was the one, so Dr. Shepardani goes through and he unpacks Al-Bukhari. Now, for those of you who don't know how the Quran is put together, you have to go to Al-Bukhari. Every Muslim, everywhere, you and me as well, whenever we want to unpack the Quran, whenever we want to know how it was put together, what happened, where the movement and in what sequence, you need to go to Al-Bukhari, volume 6. Hadith number 509 and Hadith number 510. Did you get that? Al-Bukhari, volume 6, Hadith number 509 and 510. Just go up and read it. Correct me if I'm wrong, but when you read it, Hadith number 509 talks about the first reception, that is Abu Bakr's reception. And Shabirari goes and gives a synopsis of what it says there. And it says very clearly that there was a battle up in Yamama. This is at the time of Abu Bakr. So this is right after Muhammad died. Muhammad died in 632. So this is within 2 years of his death. Abu Bakr only ruled for 2 years and then he dies. So in that 2 5-year period, 632 to 634, there's a battle way up in Yamama, and the Muslims go up in that battle, and 70 of them lose their life. They die. And as they die, of course, they die with the Quran memory in their brain. Because the Quran had not yet been written down. Not yet. Muhammad forgot to do that. Rather inept of a Muhammad, you'd think. If this is the one thing he's supposed to do as a prophet, why would he not write it down? Well, nonetheless, he had not written it down. He had not written it down. So here you have 70 of these who have memorized the Quran die in the battle, which means their memories go with them. Their memories of the Quran goes with them. And Abu Bakr and Umar, who is going to be the second kingdom, they both are remonstrating and realizing that this is a dilemma. Because if this continues, the Quran's going to leave. They're not going to have a Quran. So they get the secretary